Not that it matters. Not that it matters. With Max Miller back again today, but this time I am not by myself. Today I have Mr. Nathan Robert Casey. That's right. You heard it here first. I've got my best friend since first grade, Nathan Robert Casey. Nathan, all the way from Arizona in 110 degrees. Nate, welcome into Not That It Matters, but Not That It Matters. We're still friends. How's it going, buddy?
It's going pretty good. Actually, being from Arizona, I have to tell you that it's actually 114 degrees outside.
Sorry, I was one off. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm chilling. I don't know if I sound any different from Wednesday, but thanks to all tuning in from all around the country, whether that's my aunts, uncles, friends, family back east, my dad in California. I know he's listening. I'm currently going to flex a little bit. My girlfriend's father is a producer. Shout out Sean Daniels at Castaway Creative. Not a sponsor, by the way, but he's allowing me to use his soundboard, or so not soundboard, sound room. So I've got a mic, a whole armbar set up, and then my little old laptop. But so thanks to him, and it's I'm excited to get going. We got a lot on tap today. Not that it matters, but the New York Rangers were better in the regular season than the Montreal Canadiens. Yet here we are. The Montreal Canadiens have defeated the Vegas Golden Knights by a score of 3-2 in overtime to win the series in 6 games. And another meltdown from Vegas as Cole Caulfield scored his 4th of the series and 4th career playoff goal. He was a star again in that game. He's been a star all series. And Arturi Lehkonen, the man filling in for Jake Evans, who got absolutely obliterated by Mark Scheifele in round 2 in game 1, gets the overtime winner and shots 39-32 in favor of the Golden Knights and 0 for 2 again. And that penalty kill for Montreal was perfect in the series. I mean, by perfect, I mean they did not allow a single one. They've got the best penalty kill in the playoffs. They've been tremendous defensively. And Nate, as a zero soccer player, and I know you play goalie, but Carey Price is a man on a mission.
Carey Price just seems to be one of those goaltenders where just really for no reason whatsoever, he can just decide that he actually doesn't want to lose the game and just can manifest that if he feels like it.
I mean, we just watched the highlights to kind of make sure we didn't miss anything before the game. We saw a few things that we'll get into, but I mean, he's unreal. I mean, unreal. The way he catches the puck in the glove. You know, you see these guys make windmill saves, and yes, he'll do the same. But he just kind of catches like, okay, thanks, here you go, ref. Like, doesn't make the windmill, like he catches it like a baseball. And as you and I have played baseball for years, we know, it's not an easy thing to do when you have to stretch to catch a ball, and he catches it like it's nothing.
I mean, as an opposition player, it has to be a little concerning when, you're shooting the puck 95, 100 miles an hour, and this guy's just sort of casually stretching his hand out and just, sort of swatting it out of the air. It's
it another level. I know you're not crazy. You're more into Euros, which we will get. We do have Euro 2020, even though it is 2020 talk coming in. It is something that I've grown an interest to in soccer in the Premier League because of Nathan. He and I are both, unfortunately, but happily, Arsenal fans. Come on, you Gunners.
Oh, no.
But we got that coming up for you. But, I mean, back to Montreal, they finished 18th overall in the league in the standings for the entirety of the NHL, and they're the last team in. And, we all know the story. They were down 3-1 to Toronto, then the sweep of Winnipeg and everybody they got here, and just thinking, oh, well, Vegas is going to slaughter them, yet they're in the final. I mean, I will say this, and I know I did Basketball Talk Wednesday, and Nate, I know you were listening on Wednesday, but a stat I heard on the show before, I think it was on Wednesday. I believe Cam on Calling the Shots with Cam Koffel, he talked about this stat, but it might have been the trophy room with Jack. I know this was also probably a trivia question, but only one team has ever won or made it to the finals, I believe. Sorry, one team has ever made it to the finals in the NBA that's a 5th seed or higher. Constantly in the NHL, we see lower seeded teams go far. I mean, you look, as much as it hurts to say, you go back and you look at 2014 LA Kings. They were the 8th seed, and they had a 3-0 series deficit to the San Jose Sharks. Double whammy for me because it's both teams that I like. And the Sharks blew that lead, and they went on to win the Cup as the 8th seed, last team in the playoffs. Nate, I know both of us aren't in basketball too much, but just hearing the stat that only one 5-seeded team or higher in the NBA has ever made it to the finals, and that was the 2011 Dallas Mavericks. Like, I don't know if that says something about the parity of the league, but thoughts on that stat?
I I just think that the NHL. I know so many leagues do salary cap and draft picks, etc., but I think the NHL manages that really well. And I don't know, there's just something special about the NHL playoffs that I don't think you can really replicate in any other league. Just because, well, the one of the obvious things being that the refs decide that 90% of penalties aren't penalties anymore
Yeah,
after the regular season is over.
Yeah, and I mean, anybody who listened Wednesday knows my thoughts on that. Is you got to control what you can control, but I do agree with you there that there is just the cross checks and it's just getting out of hand.
Well, and I mean, it's not even a case of the refs are talking about, I don't want to disrupt play, I don't want to overmanage the game. Well, the worst thing that you can do is as a ref is overcorrect, but you're going to be forced to overcorrect with a major penalty or something extreme like a suspension if you let things get out of hand or if you let things become too intense, right?
Totally agree. I mean, these aren't beer league refs. I can attest. Last night I had a game at 10 o'clock or 10:30, and they weren't calling penalties, and we were slashing, and so I straight up had 8 penalties last night, and not a single one was called. And when I mean like I had 8 penalties, like I took my stick. We were down like 8-3 late in the game, 5 minutes left. I was directly next to the referee, and I took a guy's ankles up, like I just pulled his feet off him and tripped him, like blatantly, like it's the definition of a trip. He was getting by me, so I tripped him down. No call. In the second period, in the middle of the ice, this guy tried to cut into the middle, and I didn't do the ones like where I fake stop up in hockey and just let him run into me. No, like I hit him to the ground. No call. Like, if that's my beer league refs, and those are the most obvious things you see, how are they getting missed? I mean, the cross check on Kucherov, who by the way is questionable to play tonight. We have not heard anything. It's very confusing. It's you got to make a call. I hate the fact that every year it seems like the puck over the glass delay of game penalty is the most called penalty. And you look at playoffs this year, right? I mean, I said before, Montreal's penalty kill was perfect in this series. It
is. That's a scary stat for any team.
And especially if Tampa Bay goes through, what is Tampa Bay getting all of their production from, right? The whole thought process is don't take penalties against Tampa Bay. They'll score on you with or without Kucherov. Florida couldn't do it. Carolina couldn't do it. The Islanders are kind of doing it, but they're still getting scored on the power play. So if Tampa wins tonight, it's going to be interesting to see the best power play versus the best penalty kill. And Nate, I know you love defense in all sports and you love defensive plays, right? Goalies, good tackles in soccer and things like that. But do you think penalties and penalty kills changes the dynamic of a game defensively, also on even strength?
Well, everyone talks about sort of the unmeasurable statistic in sports, which is momentum, right? Or for a team, whether that be offensively or defensively, right? In the NHL, I think it's so much more substantial with penalties because, in soccer, for instance, right, it has to be pretty extreme to go down a man, right? You have to get a red card, which is honestly hard to do sometimes, right? Whereas in hockey, there's 14 different things that I could do in a moment, and then all of a sudden my team is now down a man for 2 minutes, right? So sustained offensive pressure, right, can be good or bad for teams, right? And against the Canadiens, it seems like, the Canadiens getting penalties just isn't affecting them, which is
not one bit.
Which is, well, one, it's amazing to do in the playoffs, right?
I mean, it is defensive hockey. It's insane to think about that they can go perfect.
Yeah, it's one thing to say, wow, their penalty kill is at 90%. That's really, really good. But 100% in a series is pretty crazy.
And now I think in Washington, I mean, Vegas is notorious for having a bad power play. I mean, as Sharks fans, we know Peter DeBoer, and Steve Spott was the power play coach, and he's there in Vegas again. And yet again, for back-to-back years in the playoffs, their power play or special teams for 3 years in a row really cost them. No power play goals in this series. Their power play was one of the worst ones in the playoffs this season, last season, the year before. Game 7, San Jose Sharks. We all know what happened then. It is Steve Spott, like, why is nobody talking about it? Like, we know Pete DeBoer, good coach, but he's never won anything. Why, I don't understand that move and what goes on. But I think we should transition here to tonight's game. I mean, what's not to love? Game 7, semifinals before the Stanley Cup Finals. Andre Vasilevsky, before Game 6 against the Islanders, and his last 3 series clinching games, he hadn't given up a goal. That was game 6 against the Stars in the Stanley Cup Finals in 2020 in the bubble. That was Game 6 against the Panthers this year, and that was Game 5 against Carolina this year. He has 3 shutouts. The other shutout this year was Game 4 against the Islanders when they won 8-0. Sorry, Game 5 when they went 3-2 to go when they won 8-0. But I mean, his stats this season in the playoffs, self-explanatory. I mean, he is unbelievable. I mean, in the playoffs this season, he's 11-6. His team has never lost in overtime this season. 2.11 goals against, 933 save. Carey Price and him are just matching. So clearly, goaltender, these are the best 2 goalies in the league, and Price is like, oh, he's washed up, he's injured. Player Price is a different animal. But I mean, Nate, I know you and I were talking before about Kucherov. What do you think, if he doesn't play, how do you think the Lightning are going to react and impact? I know they've got assists and points on that 10-game goal streak, but you had some thoughts on it.
Well, I mean, it's difficult when, regardless of who's hot at the time, right, or who's overperforming, right, if you're going to just lose your points and assists leader, right, in Game 7 of a conference finals, regardless of if someone is scoring with every other shot they take, right, that's going to have an impact on your offense.
Yeah, I mean, it's Kucherov, but here's my thing, and I'll be the devil's advocate here. They played with him out, without all season. They had the surgery, right? Mm-hmm. He was out all year, and the cap issues. And so they're playing, what is it, like $8-9 million over the cap? So, I mean, if they lose this game, the story and the story of this game is they lose and they don't have Kucherov is live by Kucherov, die by Kucherov, right? They get him back. They're winning. They lose him again just like the regular season. They don't win. Because remember, they finished 3rd in the division. Now it's the Lightning. We know exactly what they did and how they're going to play, and they're another tier.
Well, and I'm sure that there's plenty of people out there who would actually love to see the Lightning lose here, simply because that whole salary cap thing with Kucherov kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth to kind of, skirt the rules a little bit.
I mean, I agree, but as I said last week, Patrick Kane did it in 2011.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the Islanders might do it tonight with their captain, Anders Lee, who tore his ACL 4.5 months ago. He might play. He practiced in full before Game 6, and I'm sure he skated yesterday and today. So if he plays, there'll be $7 million over the cap. It's meant to be used in where you can use it the last 2-3 weeks in the season and put a guy on IR and not have to worry about it. But then, it's a main guy, right? You can't go in short-handed into the postseason because you can't activate a guy. There's a difference between that and the MLB. They've got the 40-man roster stuff, rules, and calling players up and things like that. It's gonna be interesting. And then again, we can go back to the power play numbers in this series as well. The power play numbers, I mean, Tampa's second in the postseason, 37.7. I believe the only team above them is Florida, and they're out of the playoffs, obviously. And we look at the penalty kill percentage. I mean, for the Islanders, 65.1, 14th. There's 16 teams in the playoffs, right? Like, clearly, staying disciplined is the way to beat the Lightning.
Well, and the other thing, the one thing to notice is that the Islanders, they don't really seem to care about conceding the first couple goals. Right, they're 6-6 when they concede the first goal, and they're 5-1 when they don't. So if you're telling me that even if I give up the first goal, my statistics still have me at a 50-50% chance of winning,
against the Lightning.
Against the Lightning, right? It's I mean, but they were down, they were down 2-0 in
In the
game
third
6.
period to the
Yeah.
Lightning in Game 6. I mean, as much as I hate to say it, that crowd is very fun to root for, don't you think?
Oh, I love the Islanders crowd. I don't have any particular feelings towards the Islanders as a team. I know that you do, obviously, for some
Podman
obvious
sucks.
reasons. for some obvious reasons, but a team with a crowd that backs them like that, especially when you're down, but your fans just keep going at that level of enthusiasm. It's
special.
It is.
It's special. And the other thing is that, the Nassau Coliseum's closing down after this year, and they're going to go to the new a new arena in Belmont. It's going to be really nice. I think it's going to be, the next barn, as they call it. But I think people want to see them go to the final one last time in that building. That building's got all the history. I mean, they won 4 cups in a row. Well, they played there. I don't know if they won all 4 cups at home. I don't believe they did. But if you look at what they did, throwing the beers, the shoes, and the water on the ice, I think that was them realizing that this truly could be the last chance to send off the Nassau Coliseum. It's interesting to me that it was so intense, and I feel like it definitely could have been handled better by the fans, but it was still special. I mean, they weren't angry. They were going nuts. They're ballistic, and it's Islanders fans. They're a little crazy, let's be honest here. But that's the closest thing you're going to get to a World Cup crowd, a Premier League crowd, a Bundesliga crowd. And you can relate to that as a soccer fan. I mean, that crowd, the chants, nonstop, winning or losing, nonstop. And they have chants for players like, hey, Josh Bailey. They've got they yell at the goalie. They just yelling the whole time. And it's a fun atmosphere. And if you can relate that to a soccer crowd, who would you relate that closest to, being on top of the fans, constantly yelling win or lose? Who would you think that is?
Dortmund.
Why?
Well, I mean, you've watched the Dortmund games. You see their ultra sections. They've got, I don't know, 50 some odd flags and banners, and they've just got 10,000 people at the end of a stadium just jumping and screaming and chanting for 90 minutes. It's crazy.
And how close are they to the field? I know I've seen them, but I know you have a better description of the stadium. How close to the field are these people? And obviously, soccer stadiums can hold more people. I mean, if it's 10,000 fans, I mean, that's about a little over half how many are going to be able to play or half are going to be able to be in the arena in the Coliseum.
It'll depend on the size of the stadium, but I mean, for Dortmund, those fans are probably from the back of the goal to the first row, maybe 8 to 10 yards at most.
Jesus. That's just a long putt that neither of us can hit. And, to switch halves, I mean, I know in soccer what you're going to do is you're going to have the way you're attacking be towards your fans in the second half. But that first half, if you get a good half, oh my. I mean, that can kill a goalie's confidence in a hurry. And that works for both hockey and soccer. And speaking of soccer, I think we should now get into some Euro 2020 talk. But before we do that, I have some news, everybody. Toddland is a great place to get masked shirts. Good place. My friend Michael Taylor, his buddy, it's the place he owns. They tell me to stay rad all the time. They've got good clothing. It's cheap. It's affordable. It's a great place to go. Toddland, that's TODDLAND.com. Toddland, stay rad. And that's not all. I've got 2. That's right, 2. Speaking of the number 2, Peak Clothing gave me a discount code. You'll get $5 off any order using the code BENCH, like the bench sports, like we're on right now. 2, like Derek Jeter, number 2, shortstop. That's bench 2. Peak Clothing, PEAK clothing.com. Use my discount code BENCH2, BENCH, the number 2. That's bench 2. And I know, Nate, you're going to buy a lot of stuff from Peak. And Toddland tells everybody to stay rad. And what's been rad? The Euro 2020s. And I know I sounded like my Uncle Barry, or the Orange Jellos he likes to call himself whenever we play wiffle ball with him. But, I mean, we waited a year to watch the Euros, and boy, it's been great.
Well, the Euros is such a unique tournament, right? It's for those who are unfamiliar with the Euros. What you can think of this as is it's a World Cup style tournament with a group stage that then moves to knockout, but the teams are limited to only the teams in Europe. Um, so you have your sort of usual suspects in that tournament: France, Germany, Belgium, England, right? Italy, sort of these big powerhouses. But then you've also got some smaller countries that North Macedonia didn't exactly surprise anyone with their results this year, I have to say. But I mean, you've got some smaller countries like Denmark. They made it through to the next round. Same with the Czech Republic.
I mean, look at Hungary. They almost made it through in the group of death.
Oh my gosh, that group was ridiculous.
That group consisted of, it was Germany, France, Portugal, and Hungary. Hungary was one goal away from finishing second in the group.
I mean, and well, for some reference on sort of the teams in that group for people who aren't as familiar with international soccer, Germany won the 2014 World Cup, but they've been on a pretty big downtrend ever since. France won the 2018 World Cup, and Portugal won the 2016 European Championships. So
with Ronaldo out, by the way.
With Ronaldo out. So you sort of have just condensed into one group somehow the last three major tournament winners for these, countries' locations, which was crazy. Now, I have to say, France was kind of boring to watch,
which is very, very unusual.
I got to be honest. I wasn't really impressed by France's play.
They won the World Cup, the last World Cup, and they were extremely fun to watch. They've got Mbappe, Kylian Mbappe of PSG. Paul Pogba is always a fun watch. And I think they embodied the personality that is N'Golo Kante, their center midfielder, who's great at defensive. But even he likes to push up and have some fun. And, as we talked about before, I mean, when it comes to confidence and momentum, they don't have any.
They won their group, right? So they have a little, but yeah, it was flat almost from France in the group stage. Now, granted, they play Switzerland in the next round, who don't have that much going for them. But yeah, France are weird. I don't know. I look at all of their talents, like you were saying, Mbappe from PSG. You have Griezmann, Giroud, right? Paul Pogba, who put all these guys together. You're looking at a dynamic, sort of fun attacking play, but we're not getting that.
Well, I mean, even then too, you have fun attacking play, but they have defense too, with Kimpembe, Varane, and Hugo Lloris in goal. Like, this is think of the Lightning with the top players around the world. I mean, you look at where every guy in this position is, and all of their positions, they're either number one or in the top three at their position in the entirety of the world, and they all play for France. Yes, there's other top players in other countries, but France is just stacked. And yet they came up so bland.
Yeah, I really expected more from this group, but we also, there is a really big topic going around, sort of about just overall fatigue of the players, because when sort of COVID all happened, right, all of the domestic and international competitions back in 2020 got shut down, and because of that, there was this big delay into when the seasons resumed. So seasons in 2020 didn't really finish until mid to late July. Those seasons normally finish in May.
And when those guys came back, they were fresh and they pushed hard because they wanted to win. There was stuff at stake all around the world. And I know in the Premier League we saw, those games with no fans and Project Restart is what they called it, those were some of the best games in Premier League in all season.
And where this fatigue comes in is because when you have to turn those players around, normally, you have a whole preseason, right? There's a postseason where players can basically finally relax their bodies after like 9 months, right? Well, instead of getting a 3-month break, they had 3 weeks. And then they had to turn around and play an entire full season. And now, because we've had international competitions like the Euros, which were supposed to happen last summer, that have been delayed, now you're looking at players who essentially have been fully active for upwards of 18 months at this point.
Mind you, on that too, in those 3 weeks breaks, some of these countries, they need to go train. Well, some of the countries are still closed. 2 of those 3 weeks, they've probably spent traveling and quarantining.
Yeah, and it's just am I frustrated with some of the Frances and the Germanys and England to a point, right? To not seeing that exciting attacking style of play. Yeah, I'm a little frustrated with it, but it's entirely understandable because no matter how good of an athlete you are, constantly pushing yourself like that for 18 months, it just isn't feasible, right? That's why we saw the implementation of the 5 substitutes rule, which is still happening in the Euros.
In the Euros, not around the world.
Not around the world anymore, but the Euros, importantly, and in my opinion, correctly, allowed for 5 substitutions, because what you started to see in the Premier League was all of a sudden, right? It's been, we're 3-4 months into the season. You just have guys just going down minute after minute with hamstrings or quad injuries, right? Or calf or ankles, right? Any major muscle sort of in the legs, right? Because they're just so fatigued, right? I think another interesting thing is England may have doomed themselves by winning their group, which is a little funny. It's a very England thing to do.
Yes, they play in Wembley, in London, their home stadium. But by winning the group, and by the results of the group of death, Group F, they now have to play Germany, who, by the way, didn't look the greatest, but have been in decent form throughout the tournament. They've shown flashes. I think France has not really shown any flashes. I think Germany definitely has. But, anytime, even if they're not playing well, you can't underestimate Germany. They've got some of the top talent in the world, and then, just like the Tampa Bay Lightning and Andre Vasilevsky, they've got probably the top goaltender in the world in Manuel Neuer.
Yeah, Manuel Neuer, very much another one of those goalkeepers where he'll make these absolutely lethal shots from attackers look like routine saves.
Kind of like Carey Price did.
It's a little concerning, again, as an attacking-minded player when okay, here I am, right? I'm 18 yards out from goal. I've got a wide open shot. I blast it. And this guy takes one step and sort of half extends his hand and pushes it over, right? But with England, it's like England versus Germany hasn't historically been a great matchup for England, I have to say.
Now, here's the thing, though. If they get through this game while you get those statistics up, they have a good chance of going to the final.
Let's see here.
I think the other team that they need to worry about is Netherlands, who they would play in the semis, in the Euro 2020 semis.
Yes, Sweden or Ukraine would be their next matchup if they can get past Germany. And Sweden's got some really good attacking talent, but I don't know from a whole team perspective if they're capable.
And here's the thing: England's playing well, right? They may not be scoring. They may not be scoring, but they're playing well defensively. They're playing organized. So we'll see. And Belgium versus Portugal in the first, Croatia versus Spain. Croatia was in the final against France in the World Cup in 2018. If England can get through Germany, they've got a good shot at going to the finals.
I actually think that Italy is the favorite to win this tournament right now.
Oh, I would 1,000% agree. And if they can get through Austria and then either Portugal or Belgium, I think it's theirs to lose with the way France is playing.
Italy is a force and a half right now. Just Verratti in the midfield alone,
that little man.
right? Yeah, but their attacking dynamics are what I want to see out of a team like France or Germany, right? They have, you know, Immobile and Locatelli, who are just these sort of dynamic players who will go create it like opportunities out of nothing, right? Which is what you know fans don't want to see 0-0, right? That's one of the biggest things that soccer often gets criticized for, which is, it lacks the oomph of, the NHL, right? Because the NHL, you have overtime, right? You have sort of these fun scoring matches, right? Whereas, sometimes with soccer, it's, well, I guess neither team wanted to score today, so 0-0, right? Um, but yeah, if you're not a big soccer person, or if you think it's boring, right, or it's just not your sport, watch Italy versus Austria tomorrow, at, will that be 3 Eastern, 12 Pacific. I guarantee you won't be bored by watching Italy play.
No,
because they have some very, very exciting attacking talents. And
I
then
think with them too. I think it goes back to Sweden and Ukraine. I think them and the Wales Denmark game, along with I think the Italy game, Belgium Portugal game, and then I really like Netherlands is another team to watch. I mean, you and I watched Netherlands Ukraine in the first day. It was 3-0 Ukraine, and we turned it off. 2 hours later, I'm scrolling through TikTok and I see highlights that it finished. Or sorry, it was 2-0, and we in Netherlands was dominating. Scroll through TikTok, see highlights, see that Ukraine brought it back to 2-0. Like, that's another team. If I know we're speaking to American audience, and they may not be as into soccer as you and I, but though if you're looking for just fun back and forth, those are the games I would recommend watching.
the Netherlands is just one of those teams that isn't really all that concerned with defending, because all of their sort of talent is based in their midfield and their strikers, right? They're not going out there to win a game like England, where I want to win 1-0, right? They go out there to win games 4-3, right? 3-1. They want to make it interesting and exciting again, which is what I want to see out of teams. But yeah, we've got some really, really interesting round of 16 games. And I mean, just looking at the overall tournament, I mean, we haven't talked about Belgium yet. And in my opinion, the best player on the planet plays for Belgium. And that's,
So are you talking Kevin De Bruyne?
Absolutely. Kevin De Bruyne is the best midfielder in the world.
He can pick out a ball like it's nothing. He can score, free kick. He's a leader. Messi and Ronaldo are still, top guys, but think about how they were at their peak. That's where De Bruyne is headed if he's not there already.
It's not fair as defending players when there's a midfielder on the other team who has a laser pointer for a right foot. If he wants the ball to go somewhere, it's going to go to that exact spot no matter what. If you're interested in seeing this guy, what he can do, right? He plays for Manchester City. And now I'm no fan of Manchester City, but they're the best team in England right now. Well, Chelsea fans might have something to say about that, but he just takes out 6 defenders with one pass. I mean, is there a comparable guy in Hockey Max that just takes half the defending team out with one pass?
I think it's Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid or Joe Thornton at his peak. I mean, McDavid, we know he can skate, he can pass, he can do whatever he needs to do, and he can just make things even better for his teammates. But I think it's almost a different dynamic, because I think De Bruyne, his pass, though his finishing is top class, I don't think it's more top class than any of the top strikers in the world. I mean, then again, De Bruyne is a midfielder. But you look at what he can do to pick out a pass. I mean, they're just going to go to him and swamp to him, and he'll pick out a ball 90 yards away like it's nothing. And you look at Joe Thornton at his peak when he was passing 100 assists a season. I think you could use that as a good comparison. He could just find anybody in traffic. I mean, eyes in the back of his head. He knows where everybody is at all times. He knows where he needs to be at all times. and he's almost got free reign to do whatever he wants on the pitch, and he rarely, if ever, makes a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, when De Bruyne makes a mistake, I mean, if he does, really, the commentators get confused when
So do
they're
I.
when they're commentating the game. They'll be like, "Wait, what? What just happened?"
De Bruyne kicked the
Because
ball to the other team. There's no way.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, but I mean, hey, I know you're talking about Croatia versus Spain. I think that Croatia sort of had their peak in 2018. Their midfield, while it's still incredibly talented, I mean, you have Perisic, Brozovic, Modric, right? All of these really talented center midfielders, right? The age is getting there. It's getting up, right? Which was a big reason why you saw, Croatia have issues against England, was because England's midfield just kind of ran around them the whole game and didn't really let them have the ball, right? So, I mean, they're playing Spain, who have a pretty dynamic midfield. I think it'll be a good game, but I mean, Spain are looking pretty scary right now. I mean, they won their last game 5-0. Granted,
Definitely got off to a slow start, but they're rolling now.
And granted, it was against Slovakia, yes, and Slovakia aren't the best comparison, maybe, but if they're in form, right, and you're looking at that, then they're definitely a team to watch out for. But I mean, I still think favorite wise, I still think Italy. They seem to have all the right stuff at the right time, right?
They're just solid all around. That's what we thought France would be, and they are just not being that.
And I mean, the other thing about Italy is, right, they have all these sort of young, dynamic attackers, right? It's sort of the exact opposite on defense. You have Bonucci and Chiellini, who I think are 34, 35 at this point, right?
They're on the yield end, but they're just as solid as can be.
Yeah, but they're just sort of these experienced heads at the back, which is so important especially when you're in tournament play, right? Because in tournament play, right, it's all about form and not making dumb mistakes. Because, it's one thing if it's a regular season game, okay, I messed up. We lost the game or we drew instead, right? In a tournament, one mistake can mean you're just done. Whole team goes home, right? So, I mean, I really think it's Italy as favorites. And then I think it'd have to be Belgium after them.
Yeah, I would agree with those two. I think right now it's Italy's got the best chance and best way of going through in terms of matchups as well. The knockout stages, they start tomorrow. ESPN Plus. Check them out. It's going to be a fun watch. It's going to be real fun. I mean, most of those games are going to be exciting because the intensity is just going to be so high.
I mean, yeah, seriously, if you're not a big soccer person, right, or if it's just hasn't been your sport before, I really do recommend that, this is a really good time to test it out to see how you really feel, because these games are going to be really, really fun to watch.
Although your father has just texted us, shout out John Casey. He thinks it's coming home, which in translation means it's going to England.
He thinks it's coming home.
He said it's coming home. A great chant from England is it's coming home chant. They're crazy. We've seen the meme celebration of the people in the bar, but I think there's not too much more to say. People think it's coming home. People think it's going to Italy. De Bruyne is the best in the world, and that's not a question. Messi and Ronaldo had their time. Goodbye. They're still great, all-timers, but De Bruyne is now the top guy. And before we move into our last topic again, we're going to get into some sticky substances here. Sorry. Oh, no, I wasn't cheating. But again, I just want to go ahead, shout out Peak Clothes again. It's peakclothes.com, PEAK clothes.com. Use the discount code BENCH2, like Derek Jeter. BENCH2, you get $5 off. Go ahead and order. Help a big out. Keep spreading the word about the bench sports. We've got great shows coming on after me. We've got Ryan with the final take. It's going to be a good show. Again, I'll be on with Down and Distance again with Chris. It's going to be another good show. That bird, I don't know if he's still there, but he's definitely going to want to get his voices in. He want to get his chirp in. So, Chris, if you're listening, I hope that bird is gone. Good luck if it's not, and it'll be interesting. But the other thing I want to shout out, you've heard it before, Toddland. Got to stay rad. TODD Land. Lots of good stuff there. Check them both out. Bench 2 on Peak Clothing, on Peak Clothes, the website, peakclothes.com. It's going to be a great one. And let's get into a little bit of a sticky situation here. I know I talked about it with spin rates and stuff like that last weekend, but when I was with you in Arizona about 2 weeks ago, I showed you a TikToker by the name of Hey Kami, and John Means is just red-handed. I mean, it's in people's hairs. It's in their gloves. Romo's taking his pants off. I mean, it's...
right. Sergio Romo acted like he was being subjected to a strip search, which, I mean, in all essence, that's kind of what was happening, right?
I mean, you look at Max Scherzer. We all talked about the bald spot on top of his head, and he threw his hat in his glove, and I think Joe Girardi was out of line there. Sergio Romo, veteran. Look, if you guys think that a guy who throws 86 miles an hour as a fastball and 75 mile an hour sliders using sticky substances, you're out of your mind. Out of your mind.
Well, and I think this is, the MLB always seems to have this issue where if there's a legitimate problem, whether that be steroids or corked bats historically, right? Or in this case, right?
Banging on trash cans.
Oh, banging on trash cans. Yeah. Or in this case, right? Having an illegal substance, and it is illegal, right? It's not allowed.
Right.
Having that for pitchers, right? Them bringing it into the field of play, whether that be on the glove or, funny enough, as we saw, in someone's hair, right? They're always so slow to react to it. And then when they do, it was the similar thing I talked about before with the NHL refs and overcorrecting, right? I mean, baseball's big problem is that people don't, or well, younger people at least, don't like watching this sort of what they feel to be a slow and monotonous sport. Why are we insisting on slowing it down more, right?
Well, I mean, the checks are going on, in between innings, right? The checks are going on as you go to break. But, like with Max Scherzer, there was a check in the middle of an inning, in the middle of an at-bat. That slows it down. I mean, all the times you see these guys step out, readjust their gloves, clap their hands, do whatever they got to do after every pitch. Like, I get it. You can look at your third base coach if he tells you to bunt, which doesn't happen anymore. 1 foot out of the box, maybe do like a half a practice swing. You're not fully out of the box. You're not readjusting your gloves every time, because if you're readjusting your gloves every time, they don't fit. Get new ones. These guys are rich enough. These teams are rich enough to get custom batting gloves, if that's even a thing. I'm sure it is.
Well, this is just why I just never wore batting gloves.
Or that too, Trent Grisham, Stephen Vogt. It's, and I will tell you this, Nate, and I will say this, and the game is slow right now. It's monotonous. It's hard to watch a full 9-inning game. You and I went to the Diamondbacks game, saw Ohtani pitch. We got to the 6th inning. The A's game had started an hour after us. They got to the 6th inning about 20 minutes after the Diamondbacks did, and we were moving pretty quick. We were about an hour and a half through 6, which is I would consider quick now for baseball. And you turned to me and you said, "Wow, this game's going quick." And I said, "It'll slow down." Well, it went 10 innings. The game was almost 5 hours, meaning the last 4 innings took 3 hours, 2.5 hours. So it is a slow sport. I do have to disagree with you on that one. And it's hard to watch a full game, and it's not something that I would purposely sit down and watch and be able to not do anything else, like a soccer game or a hockey game where there's constant action. And even soccer, people can say it's boring, but I think it's as the skill goes up and the speed goes up, I think that's getting more and more exciting, and that's a topic for another day. But in baseball, with our generation, I think it's background, fun to watch. We like the home runs, we like the strikeouts, but I think the upper heads in the MLB want to keep this tradition, which is cool. You can have that. And Garrett Cole said you pass traditions down to pitchers, but some of the traditions, like not swinging at 3-0, that needs to go die in a hole. Like, I don't, baseball's fun. Tatis, although he's the worst fielding shortstop in the league, is a fun-to-watch player at home plate. When he makes a good play once every 12 games, on the field because he has 15 errors. It's nice to see Ohtani pitching and hitting, Mike Trout making those catches, Byron Buxton getting hurt every 3 days. Oh wait, no, that's not fun. Sticky substances. That's not fun either. Sorry. Keep getting off track because baseball won't stay focused about putting a good product on the field. I agree it's not against I agree it's against the rules to do the sticky substances. But, like, what they tell their players is, they'll use it, and they'll talk about in the offseason, according to Trevor Bauer, is what they said. And then they took it away cold turkey, and I do agree with Tyler Glasnow that did affect his elbow, although I don't think that was the main cause. But I think they are just trying to make the game into something that it's not. I think they need to let it grow naturally, and as things like this come up in the off seasons, they need to correct and allow certain substances, whatever they may be, whether it's spider tack, which I don't think it will be, sunscreen and rosin. By the way, players can't wear sunscreen now. So me, who is personally sunburned, as I forgot to wear sunscreen yesterday golfing, thanks, Dad. I'll blame you because you didn't offer me sunscreen like you always do, and I forgot to ask. They now in day games can't protect their skin because of foreign substances. So they need to find a happy medium. I don't know what that is, but it's going to be interesting.
They've got a lot of old heads in the...
And not that our opinion matters, too, by the way. I had to do it. We haven't done it all. We haven't done it all show.
I don't know. It's so strange to me that there's all of these, and yeah, baseball is traditionally America's game, right? It's our sport, right? We invented it, we made it, it's ours. But there's, like you were saying, like not swinging on a 3-0 count, right? Or there's sort of these disconnects from, like, you have the older generation of players and the younger generation of players. The younger generation of player, he hits a 3-run home run to put his team up, flips his bat up in the air, gets hyped up running to first base, like
watches it for 10 minutes. Like,
you don't have to watch it for 10 minutes, but it's a natural reaction to be like, let's go. Like, come on, I just put my team in the lead. That's a big play, right? But then to hear, you hear the commentators or the pundits after the game, they're like, well, I have to say, it's a little bit disrespectful getting that excited. I'm like, what? Is he supposed to just, look to the pitcher, give him a nice little wave, and then just walk around the bases? Like, no, he's excited. You got to let the players, show their emotion on the field, right? No one wants to watch a bunch of robots playing the game, right?
I mean, the phrase is wear your heart on a sleeve, and what they want baseball players to do is not that.
Yeah, it's confusing.
It's very confusing, and I think some of the other rules, like the 7-inning doubleheaders, which I think is a good rule when you need them, but the extra innings double rule, or the extra innings man on second. I know you at first thought you didn't like it, but you're slowly coming around on it, and I was the same way. Think about this.
I was a little skeptical about it at first when I.
But here's the thing, ready? Here's my argument with this. Is it even playing field? Each team,
it's absolutely even, yes.
And it makes for more quote unquote exciting baseball. Because let's say the Diamondbacks, right? Look at the Diamondbacks. They had that game-tying home run the game we went to. You look at this exciting thing. Let's say the A's are playing the Giants, which they do today, actually. Let's say it's 4-4 going into the top of the 10th, and the A's are in San Francisco, and they get a run. And then Brandon Crawford leads off the next inning, and Posey's standing on second because he was the last man up. What he would do, what I would recommend doing, is bunting down the first baseline, move it over, just so you can get the tie. Or he can hit an absolute bomb, flip his bat, watch it fly into McCovey Cove, and win the game in one extra inning. And we don't have to sit there for 8 more hours watching 9 innings play while watching position players try and pitch because they're out of play. I mean, yesterday the Angels put a position player at catcher. Or sorry, not the Angels, I forget whoever was playing the Giants yesterday put a position player behind the plate.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's insane to me.
He did well. He looked normal. I would not have known it unless they said something.
Yeah, well, it's possible he had experience with it before. I'm not 100%.
I'm sure. I mean, guys like Josh Donaldson, he was a catcher, converted third baseman. I mean, Jacob deGrom was a shortstop, converted pitcher. So, I mean, these guys have been moved around all over. So, let these guys have fun. I think that extra inning rule is fun. You bring it up that they are it adds excitement to the game, and I think that's one of the few things the MLB did right. And Rob Manfred can still he can't take his wins because all his bad things that he does, like the sticky substances, the trash can penalty, which was none, is just not enough to like outweigh what he's done wrong. I mean, Carlos Rodon, I believe this quote came out when I was with you. Carlos Rodon of the White Sox said, well, you're going to give us a 10-game suspension, although with pay. Yes, the Astros got nothing. The Astros won a World Series and 2 pennants because of cheating.
I still can't believe that they were allowed to retain that World Series ring. That is still one of the things that absolutely shocks me to this day. Right, regardless of who the fan or who you support in baseball, it is still shocking to me that the MLB would allow. And I get it, right? You obviously can't give it. You can't just give the title to the Dodgers because we don't know what would have happened if there was no trash cans involved, right? We don't have a time machine, right? But I don't know. I think that it's just the whole idea of cheating, right? And again, like with the MLB, like I was saying, right, with they're slow to react to it, right? It took them how long to finally dish out a punishment, and then even then, it was basically, hey, can you fire your administrators, please?
And even then, the only way they got something out of these guys, instead of using the evidence that they were given from all 31 other teams, whatever it is, they were like, no, this is enough. We need to hear the Astros admit it. The Astros would never admit it until they said, oh, yeah, you'll get off scot-free, no problem. And then they said, oh, yeah, well, we did it. We won a World Series doing it because they knew there was no punishment coming. You look at A.J. Hinch. He's now the coach of the Tigers. Alex Cora, who was the coach of the Red Sox, literally was suspended for 1 year. They, quote-unquote, fired him. I put on air quotes. And now he's their head coach again in the Red Sox. And he was apparently the man behind it. He's the guy who started. Beltran, who's supposed to be the coach of the Mets, no longer really a part of baseball. But, yeah, I don't know. And then you look at some of the Astros, too. I mean, the Astros said they weren't afraid of the Yankees this year with all the fans coming up. And then specifically Carlos Correa was saying that stuff. And then when Carlos Correa and everybody was getting booed, Correa said it was disrespectful and mean and it hurt my feelings.
Well,
you said it wouldn't. So are you pick a mindset, fighter or flighter?
Here's one of the old MLB adages I'll actually support in this case, right? The traditional rule is that you can steal signs in the MLB. It's absolutely possible. If I'm a base runner on second base, I can totally steal the signs, right? But the shortstop and the second baseman are going to notice, right? And then guess what's going to happen next time I go up to the plate? Dunk! I'm going to get hit.
Now, although that might be an old-fashioned mentality, but I'll go one step further on that. One of the reasons when you see a pitcher or a catcher calling pitches when there's a man on second, you see like 8 numbers. It's a sequence so they can change so that literally can't happen. But when it does,
oh no, I'm just saying,
you hear talking and you hear people talking about it, and then you see the throw behind the batter, and that's where some of the stuff comes out.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's like sort of the old adage of, oh, you can totally steal the signs, just expect to get thrown at your next at bat, right?
If you get caught.
If you get caught, right? But I mean, that's the thing that I'm talking about with the Astros, right? Correa wants to complain about his feelings. You're getting hurt. Okay, well then maybe don't cheat to win the World Series. And then like all the fans.
And 2 pennants.
And then all the fans wouldn't hate you. Crazy concept. I mean, again, like it was just crazy to me when that whole thing came out. It was like, it kind of shocked me that, certain players were just okay with it. Like Altuve didn't strike me as a player that would be.
Oh, and he has a kind of clip of hitting the home run off Chapman and then running in. He hits the home run after DJ LeMahieu hits the most forgettable home run in Yankee history because it was the most exciting and possibly game 6 of the ALCS. And then Altuve comes up and hits this home run, and instead of going crazy, he holds his jersey together and runs into the dugout and says, sorry, I was shy. Okay, you had a buzzer on your chest because you couldn't hear the trash cans. Like, admit it. Admit it. You cheated.
I mean,
you won, and they can't take that away from you. Go for it. But now that entire team will never get in the Hall of Fame because they cheated. If they get in, I'll be genuinely surprised. And Altuve was a guy to root for. Small, scrappy. He was in the worst with them, and him and Springer went the worst at the Astros, and to cheat to get out of that with the team that they had, which was a good team. is just disgraceful.
Well, I mean, and again, right? I think we're gonna see an effect on these players when they retire. Because, I mean, the biggest example to look at is the fact that Barry Bonds has the most home runs out of any player in history. But because he cheated, he will never be allowed into the Hall of Fame. Right?
Nope.
And
Pete Rose, gambling on his team, could have messed up lineups when he was a manager. Probably not going to get in the Hall of Fame. He's got the most hits ever. Same issue there.
So, I mean, for someone like Altuve, who's correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, he's got Gold Gloves, he's got Silver Sluggers, I'm pretty sure, right?
He's got MVP.
He won MVP.
2 World Series.
I don't think it matters how many accolades he's going to end up with,
for sure.
Because I think the very first thing all of those Hall of Fame ballot voters will look at is, oh, well, sorry, I'm actually not going to use one of my votes for you because you had to cheat to win a World Series. Right?
And he cheated for 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, I could get into this. I could also, what I might do is my old professor, his name is Mark Purdy, sports journalism professor at San Jose State. He is a Hall of Fame voter for the MLB. I'll see if I can get him on the show. I'll send him an email, see what I can do, and we can have this discussion with him soon if I can get him on. But he told me his voting. He's a small Hall guy. I agree with him. I'm a Hall of Fame guy, not a Hall of Good guy. And I think a lot of Hall of Fames are now just Hall of Very Good. And don't get me wrong, all the players that are in are extremely good, by the exception of maybe Terry Bradshaw, who
we've got a couple Hall of Famers coming up in the next couple years, like Pujols, Miguel Cabrera.
Yep, that's another one.
We've got a couple coming up here that won't just be Hall of Very Good. Those guys are really deserving.
Right, and I think Trout's on that path. I would even put Clayton Kershaw in that conversation. Dude's been a stud his whole career, and he finally got over the hump last year. Got to be happy.
Yeah, can he pitch in the playoffs, though?
He did last year, and he did the last 2 years. And the year before that, he didn't because, well, the team he was going against was cheating, which we just talked about. But this is, not that matters. I still think he's a Hall of Famer.
Not that matters. I guess the Astros will just keep all their rings.
Right. Not that it matters. They cheated. They kept their rings. They don't get, and not that it matters. Players that get caught with sticky substances still get paid. But we don't make the rules. Rob Manfred, the idiotic governmental form that he is as the commissioner of the MLB, does.
He's so unlikable. Why are so many commissioners of sports so unlikable?
I don't know, but that's a topic for next week. Thank you to Peak Clothing. Thank you to Todd Lance. Stay rad. This has been Not That It Matters. Nathan, thank you for joining. He'll be with me every Friday. It's been a ton of fun. We've got a lot on tap. We've got coming up next, like I said before, we've got Just Vibin' with the Final Take with Ryan Lipp. Then we've got the Titantron, and then we've got me back on again with Chris down at distance. Lots of shows. Stick around on the bench. It's going to be a good day today. This has been Not That It Matters.